So, let's talk about Yu-Gi-Oh! Hello everybody, Infinite Shinjo here, and I figured just for a little bit of a change of pace that I record a video on how I got into Yu-Gi-Oh!, what I've done with all of that, and basically some stories that I got. Because I've certainly made it no secret that I like Yu-Gi-Oh!, so I figure just as a little bit of a time capsule to record this, so if anybody has any questions on how I got into Yu-Gi-Oh!, this video can be directed towards them. So I feel like as far as beginnings go, my start with Yu-Gi-Oh! Was basically the same as a lot of people. I got started with it with the original series of the anime, and I remember back then, I think it was that I had an actual card. Actually, I still have it to this day. Bokoichi, the battle-chanted locomotive. I think that's the one. A normal monster with 500 attack and 500 defense. I just used that with pieces of paper and traced around it and literally drew my own cards. We even have some to this day, my brother and I. But being the very impressionable kid that I was absolutely hooked on the show. And anytime I got a chance to go to a Walmart or a Target or really any place that sold Yu-Gi-Oh! Cards, I was there. I wanted packs of cards. Now, going into middle school, I didn't really play it as much because a majority of the people, at least to my knowledge, didn't even play the game. And middle school, late elementary school was around that time where if you found out that you play Yu-Gi-Oh!, you're basically done. For some reason, people got a kick out of making fun of you for playing Yu-Gi-Oh!, at least back in my day. I'm not sure if it is the same now, because Yu-Gi-Oh! Is a lot more of a well-respected game, I feel. But back in my day, it was something that you got made fun of for some reason. Now, I never went as far as to go to local tournaments or anything like that, or any tournaments in general, because, first of all I did was collect the cards. And at that point, it was essentially the same as collecting Pokemon cards. I just collected them, they looked pretty, I kept them, whatever. But then around the time that I got into high school, my brother was already in high school, and somehow they managed to get a Yu-Gi-Oh! Group there where they found a whole bunch of people that play the card game, because at the time of high school, you didn't really care what people thought. And at the high school that my brother and I went to, we had an hour of lunch, so if you needed help with any of your classes, or really anything for that matter, the teachers were available. And so we did the only logical thing and play Yu-Gi-Oh! On top of lockers, because our lockers were basically like right on the ground, and you could just stand on top of them. There was a platform that you could play Yu-Gi-Oh! From, and none of us had any mats because we were really talented. But at the time that I went to high school, my deck was basically, I don't remember what monsters I put in there, but I remember I had like all sorts of cards that I found out later were banned at that point, like Monster Reborn, Dark Hole. I don't think I had a Raigeki, but I basically had all these cards that are just like, oh, that card's banned, that card's banned. And I'll never forget, the first duel that I had was against one of my brother's friends, and we dueled, and he had, I can only assume, an Elemental Hero deck, because I remember he had Elemental Hero Stratos on the field. I can only assume he had a bad hand as well, because that's all that he summoned. But since my deck was probably at that point so unbalanced, I had a fistful of spell and traps and probably high-level monsters. I couldn't summon anything. I was bricking so hard. But what I did, the only logical thing that you could do with a hand like that, Dark Hole his Elemental Hero Stratos, use Monster Reborn to bring it back. And I think somehow I managed to win. Now, granted, him being older than me, he was probably going easy on me. But still, that's just one thing that I remember. And from there, my go-to deck was an Ancient Gear deck. I absolutely loved the Ancient Gears. I remember watching the GX anime before I got to high school, and I loved Ancient Gear Golem for some reason. Somehow I was able to get all the cards, especially since Gear Golem, I think at the time, was only available through the Lost Millennium. Maybe a couple of minor packs along the way, reprinting him as a common. But I remember that my deck was basically revolved around Ancient Gear Golem and all the other ones, and Gear Town. And I don't think it's an actual legitimate ruling, But like what I always did, play one Gear Town, get rid of it to play another Gear Town, because at that point you can only have one field spell on the field at a time. I think it's still the same, it's just that both players can, for some reason, not sure. But what I always did, played one Gear Town, got rid of it, played another Gear Town, and for some reason I thought that that would trigger Gear Town's effect of being destroyed, and I could bring out my go-to Gadgetron Dragon. Because Ancient Gear Golem can't be special summoned in any way, Gadgetron was the next best option because he has the same amount of attack points, and he's pretty easy to summon, and he's pretty beefy, not to mention. But then from there, somehow, between all the other people that were in the group, I made a whole bunch of other decks, like I had a Watt deck at one point. I don't think I had a 6 Samurai deck. I think I had a Ninja deck. I think that's what it was. And like early when I was in high school was the Synchro era. Then by the time I was graduated was when the XCs came out. And that's where the stuff like the Ninjas came in. I think I had some other decks. Honestly, I can't remember. I sold a lot of them to my friends, so I can't really remember off the top of my head. Honestly, there were a lot of decks that I made, and a lot of them that I didn't keep. Like, even to this day, I just made a random Synchro deck. No real rhyme or reason. It's just that through high school, I made a lot of friends that realistically didn't stay friends with me. So it's just like, this friend reminds me of this Yu-Gi-Oh card. Basically pulling an anime moment, putting all sorts of cards in my deck that really have no rhyme or reason. But somehow the deck still actually worked. And a lot of the decks, like I said, I don't really keep. Although the Ancient Gear deck is one that I still have to this day. Even modifying it with a lot of the newer cards like Ancient Gear Howitzer and Ancient Gear Fortress, I think it is. I need more Wyverns. I'm not sure if I'm going to work on getting more Wyverns because I feel like my deck is pretty good at the moment. But to be fair, I haven't used it. But one thing that I remember, I don't remember why, but one of my other friends either didn't have his deck or something, and he said, hey, let me borrow your Ancient Gear deck. Oh, okay, here you go. I used another one of my decks. Doesn't matter which one it was. His starting hand was, I think, Ancient Gear Golem, 2 other gear monsters, I can't remember what they were, and Power Bond. Maybe limiter removal. Because, like, the big monster that I had in the deck at the time, and really the best monster still, is Ultimate Ancient Gear Golem, which works by fusing one Ancient Gear Golem with 2 other gear monsters, and he has 4,400 attack points, has piercing damage, meaning even if you play defense, you're still screwed, stops spell and traps from activating, and if you play Power Bond, his points double to 88. And if limiter removal was in the mix, that's 16 or 160k? I don't remember. I don't know how to do like including the K. 16,000, that's what it is. So, a monster with that many attack points can't use spells and traps to stop him, and he does piercing damage regardless of what mode you put him in. That was just broken, and I still remember that to this day. I don't think I have Power Bond in my deck now, because, like, realistically, if I open up with a hand like that, and my opponent has something like, what could trigger before him? Maybe like a Threatening Roar, so it wouldn't trigger when he attacks, but it can be used beforehand. With Power Bond's effect, I'd take over 4k points in damage to myself. So, not really the best strategy. But yeah, I know I had some other decks at the time. I know I had a Madolche deck, but I can't remember what else I have. If I can think to remember, I'll include it, but to be honest, I'm drawing a blank right now. But that's basically the biggest part of Yu-Gi-Oh! In high school. There were some moments where there were people that were butthurt about losing, and there were times that our stuff got stolen, or not my stuff, somebody else's stuff, but I think that's just standard fare for Yu-Gi-Oh! Players. Because, like I said, back in the day, it was one of those things that you just got made fun of for some reason. But to end it on a positive note, and this memory is still a little bit fuzzy because it's been a while, but I'm pretty sure there was a time that I went over to my grandma's house, my brother and I think she bought me a pack of Legend of Blue Eyes or the Metal Raiders or something. I might have just got to both packs, I don't remember. But I remember getting home to my grandma's house, opening up the pack of cards, and for some reason, I remember pulling, of all cards, Uraby. Okay, this one says Legend of Blue Eyes, so it must be Legend of Blue Eyes. And the only reason I remember it to this day is because in Yu-Gi-Oh! Duel Links, Rex Raptor has a dialogue box where he summons it, and apparently it's pronounced Uraby. Never knew that. But yeah, for some reason, that's something that sticks into my mind. Not entirely sure. Never really got anything good from Legend of Blue Eyes or Metal Raiders or anything. Never pulled Mirror Force, Monster Reborn, Blue Eyes. I'm just happy with my Uraby for some reason. But I think that about covers stories that I can think of with Yu-Gi-Oh! And like all my memories at the moment. Honestly, I'm just doing this impromptu, so there might be stories that I remember later. Honestly, I don't play the game much anymore. I still watch the anime. So, if you want me to do a random video on what I think about the anime, I'm already recording reviews on them, but I can talk about like personal things with it, my personal favorite characters, because I don't discuss that in each Yu-Gi-Oh! Series. But, yeah, I figured to just record this video just so you know my thoughts on Yu-Gi-Oh!, what I've done with Yu-Gi-Oh!, all that stuff. And since I don't really talk much about Yu-Gi-Oh! On the channel, it's a nice video to do, especially since it's different. But yeah, let me know your experiences with Yu-Gi-Oh! And if I think about enough stuff, there might be a part 2, but I'm not sure because at the same time, I feel like there is more stuff that I can talk about without bringing up names. But if there is, there might be a part 2, but that's only if you guys want to see more of it. And if you want me to do something like this for, say, Pokemon or something, I can do that too. But yeah, that's going to be today's video. If you enjoyed, hit that like button down below. Subscribe if you haven't. It's a little bit of a different format from my other videos, so I hope you do enjoy it. But I will see you in the next episode. Momentai.